Welcome to Friday Morning Dharma on April 17th. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, all you in-person folk. Why don't we begin with some meditation? Please settle into a comfortable meditation posture. Allow your spine to be straight and relaxed. A straight spine facilitates unrestricted flow of our internal energy winds, sometimes called prana, sometimes called chi. Our mouth is closed, our jaw is relaxed. And if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and softly close your eyes. And as a means of settling both our body and our mind in preparation for meditation, we can silently recite the three-word mantra: rest, relax, release. On the inhalation, rest. At the top of the inhalation, silently say the word relax. And on the exhalation, silently say the word release. And repeat this sequence for a couple of moments. And next, please gently transition into meditation on the inner body. Please be the silent observer of sensations within your inner body. All that is asked of you is to silently observe these sensations. This morning's Lamrim meditation is on refuge practice. The natural state of your mind is that of spacious, luminous clarity, quiet stillness, and vastness. Your mind is as vast as space itself. And by resting in this spacious clarity, this quiet stillness, we can enjoy the peace that we so seek, that we so long for. What prevents us from experiencing this luminous clarity, quiet stillness, and vast spaciousness of mind? What prevents us from experiencing this are obstacles and obscurations called delusions. Delusions such as anger, resentment, uncontrolled desire, jealousy, stress, and so forth. The word Dharma means wisdom teachings and wisdom practices. And it is through Dharma that we can remove these obstacles and obscurations, that we can remove these delusions, these confused states of mind. Dharma is the medicine which will enable us to remove the obstacles and thus experience the peace of our spacious, clear consciousness. Contemplating in this way, we will arrive at the conclusion, I must practice Dharma. I must take refuge in Dharma. Out of care for both myself and those around me, I must take refuge in Dharma. I will take refuge in Dharma. This determination is your object of meditation. Please rest with this determination while concurrently meditating on sensations within the inner body. The unsurpassable peace of your clear light mind is your birthright. Through the removal of delusions, you can come to rest in that clear light mind all the time and experience the peace that will come from resting in that state of consciousness. Therefore, hopefully, we'll arrive at the conclusion, I must practice Dharma. I must take refuge in Dharma. Please rest with this conclusion, this determination for the last moment or two of our meditation while meditating on sensations within the inner body. Now, please gently redirect your awareness. Become aware again of your physical body and allow your breathing to become less shallow. Taking deeper and deeper breaths, become aware again of your surroundings inside the room that you're occupying. Deeper and deeper breaths, becoming aware again of the world that exists outside of the room that you're occupying. Become aware again of clouds, of blue sky beyond the clouds, of outer space beyond the blue sky. We dedicate all of the merit, all of the positive energy from this morning's meditation to world peace. May all beings without exception soon come to enjoy a state of complete, perfect fearlessness. May all beings without exception soon come to rest permanently in the spacious clarity and quiet stillness of their consciousness. May all beings without exception enjoy inner and outer freedom. Completely fill up your belly and lungs with air, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes and bring your meditation to an end. Thank you very much, and welcome back. So, continuing with our discussion of the Lam Rim meditation called or titled Refuge Practice. Refuge practice refers to taking refuge in the three jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. We've been focusing on the last week or so on Dharma, the Dharma jewel. Excuse me. And I'm going to go over, I think in Monday's class, I talked about the fact that within Buddhist doctrine, there are four paths that we can follow. There are four paths. We can choose to follow any one of them. We can change that path, return to the initial path. And I'd like to wade into that a little bit this morning. And I'm going to make an appeal, a heartfelt appeal for you to really apply yourself to understanding these paths. Understand them and commit them to memory, please, because this has to do with our setting of our intention for entering or for some of us continuing on the path, right? We need to be very clear about where we want to go with this practice. We need to be very clear. I mean, some of us adventurous types, when we take a trip, when we go on a journey, I'm just going to wander. I'm going to wander aimlessly and I'll know when I arrive. Good on you if you've got that trust and confidence and courage. But I think for most of us, when we take a journey, we want to know what our destination is, where we're going. And in this case, with regard to which path, which route, if you will, in Buddhist doctrine, I think we need to be clear on our intention, on the intention for our doing what we do, our intention for practicing, right? Now, some of you might understandably be saying, well, Jeff is always talking about himself in a self-deprecating way, linear type A Aries and all of this stuff. And this is just more of that. It's not actually, it's not really my need to have things clearly defined and know where we're going, OCD and all this stuff. No, it's for spiritual practice, and I think a spiritual path, we need to be clear on where we're going. And with regard to, you know, creating this balance between clarity of intention and not grasping at results, I've got this little mantra that I came up with. I kind of cobbled together from other sources, but it says, set your intention, do your best, abandon hope for results, the rest is karma. I think that might be an advisable approach for us as we enter the path and decide which path we're going to take, if we decide to enter any of them at all. Set your intention, do your best, abandon hope for results, the rest is karma. So in the new meditation handbook, Geshe Kelsang talks about three different types of paths, three different paths within the doctrine, right? There is the initial scope, paths, scope. I think we can use those terms interchangeably. Initial scope, intermediate scope, great scope. Okay. And the people that practice those three paths fall into different categories of being. Like there are these beings. And the first one isn't particularly flattering, but here goes, right? The first group of people that follow the initial scope are considered small beings. Okay. None of us, I don't think, like to be called small beings, but here it is. I'm going to tell myself that in Sanskrit or Tibetan, there's yeah, it translates to a less than endearing small being label. So there are small beings, there are middling beings, and there are great beings. Okay. And I know this is dry and kind of linear presentation, but hang in there, you guys. It's really important. The meditations that we've been focusing on so far, the land rim meditation, starting with our precious human life, um, death and impermanence. Right now, we are on refuge practice. And then the last meditation of the initial scope will be actions and their effects, or karma. These all constitute the initial scope, okay? And it is small beings that practice the initial scope, okay? So just fast forward a little bit. Intermediate scope, middling beings, that's about attaining complete and permanent liberation from suffering. Great scope is about bodhicitta, for those of you who are familiar with those terms. But we're talking this morning about initial scope and small beings, okay? Small beings who practice the initial scope. And to like break it down even further, there are two types of small beings: ordinary small beings and special small beings. Okay. All right. Special small beings. That's, I feel a little bit better about that. You call me a small being, I don't like that. You call me a special small being, that's somewhat redeeming. Okay. So, anyways, an ordinary small being engages in actions and does what he or she does in order to attain happiness in this life. Okay. Go out, make money, go on vacation, do what you do, raise children, have sex, you know, buy things, keep your house up, whatever the activity is, including spiritual practice, actions and their effects are in the name of experiencing happiness in this one life. Okay. Special ordinary beings do what we do in the name of experiencing happiness in our future lives. Okay. So that can be our intention for being on the Buddhist path or any other path. And I think we need to ask ourselves, am I doing this? Am I engaging in spiritual practice, spiritual activities to attain peace and happiness in this one life? Or is it for peace and happiness in future lives, which would be the motivation or the intention for a special small being? Do you guys see this distinction? Yeah. Um, and this sort of answers a question that I asked you all to contemplate a couple of weeks ago. What makes a worldly activity worldly? Yeah. What makes a worldly activity worldly? And one of my closest Sangha friends said, what makes an activity worldly is doing it in the name of experiencing beneficial results in this life, in this one life, rather than planning for creating karmic causes for us to experience happiness in our future lives. Okay. I think that's a pretty solid way of looking at worldly actions or meaningful actions. And just sort of going back to the dangers of lower rebirth, and the notion of rebirth in general, compared to all of our future lives, which are countless, this life is very, very short. The duration of a water bubble, sometimes it's said. This life, relative to all of our future lives, has the duration of a water bubble. So quick, so short. Let's use this life. The initial scope teachings encourage us. let's use this life to set ourselves up for peace and resources and spiritual opportunities in our future lives. That's the intention of a special small being. Whereas an ordinary small being, let's party, right? Let's party in this lifetime. And, like my friend I told you about a couple of classes ago, I'll sleep when I'm dead. We'll take that approach. We won't though. We won't though. So we'll get into intermediate scope and middling beings in Monday's class. I want to use the last minute or two to share with you a little bit of a success story. Okay. So I lead meditation at Aldo Leopold Middle School as part of Lotus Center's um, meditation in public schools program. And it's the toughest job I've ever loved. And, getting middle schoolers to meditate is not the easiest thing I've ever done. Let's just put it that way. But we'll meditate a little. They're just 20-minute sessions, and we'll meditate for 5 or 7 minutes. And then I'll like tell stories or ask them questions, stories that have a moral to it. So what I recently have done with the different class, I teach 6 classes there, teach meditation to 6 different groups at the school. And what I've been talking to them about is the difference between subjective and objective views. Subjective and objective. And I used the example, I started out by saying, most of them, not many of the kiddos, not even the 8th graders, kind of are clear on the distinction, or maybe 1 or 2. But let's say 2 plus 2 is 4. That's a fact, therefore it's objective. If I say that 4 is an awesome number, um, that's a subjective statement. It means it's an opinion. And okay, now we see. So the next step is I say, here's a picture of a structure that put it up on the overhead. If I were to stand, if we were standing on the street and I pointed to that and I said, that is a house, would that be an objective or subjective statement? And most of the kids say objective, but a few of them say subjective. And I say, what is it that makes it subjective? Why would you say it's subjective? Well, to you, it might be a house. To somebody else, it might be a mansion. Or to another person, it might be a shack. Just kind of depends on our perspective. Our perspective is a function of mind. We have the ability to control our own mind. I'm really going through this quickly, right? But so where this is going is, helping them understand almost everything is subjective. Almost everything is subjective. And there's great freedom to be had from that recognition. So anyways, I did this at one class, and then a couple of classes later, I asked this question about the house, and a girl raises her hand and she says it's subjective because that might be, a person might consider that to be a mansion. And I looked at her and I said, did you talk to somebody from the previous class? And she smiles and nods her head, yes. And I was just like so happy that the kids are interested in this enough to be talking about it amongst themselves. It's like the most affirming, like gratifying thing. Anyways, why am I telling you guys about this? Because Give Grandly is tomorrow, and meditation in public schools is one of Lotus Center's community service programs. Lotus is a nonprofit organization, as you know, and we rely not only on class fees, but donations from the public to do the work that we do. And so if you're in a position to make a donation to Lotus Center as part of Give Grandly, I'd be grateful if you would consider doing so. Okay, 9:02. Have a great, great day. Thanks so much for being here, everybody.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Bye-bye.
Which path is missing in, you said there were 4 paths, but then you only talked about 3.
Two, whoops, I'll leave the recording on. Two within the initial scope, ordinary small being, special small being, and then middling beings, the middle path, and then or the intermediate scope, and then the great scope. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so there's 2 in the first one and then 1 in each.
correct.
So
Yeah,
that makes 4.
yeah, that makes 4. Yep.
4